What's up, everybody? Today I've got a great one for you. This was a 1994 Geo tractor. This is my wife's dream ride when she was 16. And so, obviously, naturally, being the perfect husband that I am, I took four Geo tractors and turned it into one. So, obviously, you can tell by the detail work just in the hood alone that a lot of work went into this. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So, I'm going to be going through every single thing and pointing out every single part of this build that took around 2 years to get done. A lot of things happened during that, and this thing was built to dance and just be an absolute animal out there. A few things that you may not have noticed is that the side markers have been shaved, the antenna has been shaved, the door handles have been shaved, the rear markers have been shaved, and the rear tailgate has been completely shaved. All right, so now we're moving on to the interior of the Geo Tracker. Max with Max's Upholstery here locally in Clarksville, Tennessee. He did the seats for us, embroidered the tracker logo in the headrest. I did make all of the custom panels on the sides and in the back, but he came up with the design to put on there. If you look closely, you'll notice that the dash has been removed, sanded down smooth, and obviously painted and wet sanded and buffed, and it just went through the whole nine. She also has the custom steering wheel with the tribute brass knuckles. If you know, you know. Also, the switch panel in the center is just for cruising purposes, just to be able to hit the switches. Because let's be honest, this thing is absolutely violent because it was made to be a dancer, and we have a switch box specifically for dancing it outside of the vehicle. All right, so now I'm going to talk to you about the paint. This is all Tamco paint. Some of it might have been miscellaneous stuff if it was just like some purple shading or something like that. But for the most part, everything on here is Tamco, Tamco clear. So much clear. But anyway, so Josh Poston with Paint Tricks, he took his time with me for the past year and some change, just absolutely teaching me everything. And I really did not understand how a lot of this worked until he showed it to me, and now I have a different appreciation for paint. But anyway, so I had an idea for a design, and my wife, she also had somewhat of an idea for it, so we kind of collabed, She made some changes to some, you know, ideas that I had, and then showed it to Josh. Josh then came up with some ideas of his own to, you know, help it all come together and make sense. And this is what it turned out. And I could not be happier with how it turned out. My wife is also extremely happy on how it turned out. So as you can see, there's so much detail in this. There's honeycomb. There's whatever you want to call this. Obviously, there's the lace. There's the silver leafing that, you know, with candy pink over that, and then Cassidy, you know, did her expertise on the pinstriping and just made it just all come together, and, you know, all the way down to the brass knuckles, and, you know, the name of the vehicle, Poison's right here, and Paint Tricks is over there, and then, you know, we got Velvet Foot that signed it in the back. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful paint job that came together so well, and I'm so excited about it. Obviously, the stripes and everything, or excuse me, all of the graphics, they go over to the roof, go over the top here, and then all the way down the tailgate. Everything has been touched on this vehicle, just about. I'd also like to point out how much clear is on this thing. I lost count after 12, but I'm pretty sure there's around 15 coats of clear on here. This is not a typical lowrider paint job where you know, you see it, you can actually feel the patterns. You can't feel these patterns. These things are buried. This is the softest paint that I think I've ever touched. So another thing I'd like to point out, worth mentioning, is that this is a tracker. Trackers have emblems that run down the side of it, and it's almost like a trim that runs along that. It also flows into the front and rear bumper. Well, we didn't want that. We got rid of all the emblems along the side, the trim, or excuse me, the whatever you want to call it along the side of it. We got rid of that. And we wanted to get rid of it in the front and rear bumper. The only way to do that is to go with the Suzuki Sidekick, so it looks like it's been shaved off. Even though we didn't shave it, there was a lot of prep work on it, but we didn't shave it. But it looks shaved, even down to the tracker emblem. This is silver leafed with candy over it, pink candy over it. Then on top of that, it was pinstripe and then cleared about 10, 15 more times, it seems. All right, so let's start going into the setup. So the original design came from Brandon Smith at Smith Chassis Works, and High Strike, the purple tracker that you see dancing all over the place. That's Billy Morgan's, and he's a good friend of mine. The original idea came from that setup. Now, I did make, obviously, several changes to how I wanted the setup to be, and some of the internals, and, you know, just little bitty, you know, additional changes. Not to say that anything that he did was wrong. It's just that, you know, I wanted to do it just a little bit different. For example, I grounded all the motors. They are grounded straight to the underside of where the block mounts to ensure that they have plenty of grounding. All the wires are 0 gauge. Went with number 11 Marzucci's. Instead of going with any kind of 3/8 lines, everything on return is a hard line that's a 1/2 inch return. On the pressure side of it, none of the pressure side is going through the dump. It's only returning. So in the rear, I want to say these are 20s, something like that, 20s, I believe. In the front, I want to say they're 6s. Now those are 3/8 lines, so it's more about pressure than volume on this. In addition to that, the way that this build is different than most is that instead of like normal lowriders, you have, you know, a frame that you plate the sides, or you plate the arches, or you do all this kind of plating. In this, it's more kind of like a roll cage type of situation. So instead of normally you'd have, you know, a little bit of plating here and there, well, with this, you have your bridge right here in the center that holds everything. And then you have different points that the rack, let's just call it the rack, is connected to the frame here, right here, and down there. So it's almost like a roll cage setup. So it's adding so much reinforcement to it just based off of that. Now, the truth is, originally this was designed to be a 4-pump 12 battery setup, and it was supposed to be just absolutely crazy when it started to dance. The problem is we made it a little too pretty to tear it up. So after speaking long and hard with my wife about it, we decided we're not going to dance it. It will get wild whenever it wants to, but we're just going to cruise it from this point forward. So anyway, what I did was I added a solenoid plate. So you got your solenoids, got them right here. And then in addition to your normal grounding to wherever it is, I added an additional cable to ground that plate to a different source to where it was adding additional grounding. To this day, the motors never get hot, the solenoids never get hot. Nothing really even gets hot. It never really acts like it wants to stop. It's always ready, you know. Granted, we never did hook up the full 12 batteries to this, so any video that you might have seen out there of it hopping or doing whatever it's doing, it was never full power. It was only half power. So I can only imagine what this thing can do if it was on full power. Truth is, I didn't want to roll it over. I was a little too concerned that it was going to roll over. So anyway, so going into that, so now we have removed 6 batteries out of the front of it, and we're going to add a speaker box and maybe some other stuff in the old rack. So basically that's kind of what we had in mind for that. All right, and so since this is a dancer, instead of putting the ground underneath your feet or hanging it out the back so it can scratch up all the paint, designed this little quick disconnect to go in here. So a lot of people have asked, well, now that you removed all those batteries, does it 3-wheel? Well, yeah, I'd say a 3-wheel is pretty damn easy. So just quickly show, even with the weight reduced, yeah, I'd say a 3-wheel is pretty easy. Alright, so hopefully you can see everything, but you've got your strut. All you do is leave it alone for the most part. Leave it in there, drill a hole in the bottom, drain out all the oil that's inside. Then you're gonna take a donut there and weld it to the bottom of this dude. You're gonna put in your cylinder right here, and as a traditional lowrider, you add obviously your cup and your spring that you want to use. Now we used 2-ton in the front and the rear, almost a full stack in the back, and about two turns cut off in the front, I'd say, give or take. And obviously it is chained just in the event that it breaks, because you know it is a possibility that it would break. Right, so now to show you multiple points of where it connects, like I was trying to explain earlier. So you've got one point where it connects to the frame, you got a second point where the bridge connects to the frame, you got another point where it connects to the frame. So even all of this just by itself creates like a skeleton of help. But in addition to this, this goes all the way down to another portion of the frame in the back seat, which is, of course, it's under all this crap, but hopefully you can see that right there. In conclusion, hopefully you can see how much work and time went into this thing. It was a nightmare, but also the end result was an absolute dream. So make sure that you're following That Tracker Girl. That's my wife's page on TikTok. Velvet Foot is on there as well, Paint Tricks, and I will have the links in the description to all the different ones that I've mentioned here, as well as Smith Chassis Works there in Louisville, Kentucky, which was the original design and everything that kind of went into the hydraulic setup. Make sure that you're following me as well, like and subscribe, and if you have something to say it down in the comments.